Welcome to the Real Estate Masters Podcast, where we interview the top names in the real estate game. If you want to grow your real estate business, see more podcasts, or get free resources, go to www.remcommunity.com. The only podcast that allows you to directly connect with the guests and many of the highest level names in the real estate game.
You are in for a treat with our next guest. Do me a favor, subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review, and don't forget to go to remcommunity.com to connect with some of the highest level real estate professionals in the United States through our community and through our high level masterminds. Let's go.
Welcome to another fantastic episode of Real Estate Masters. I'm Tony Javier, your host as usual. And today we have Gabe Dasilva out of New Jersey. He's got something unique we haven't really talked about in any of our podcasts, and there's not too many people that I know that does what he does, and that's a lot of value add. I can't remember exactly what he called it, but we'll jump into it. Value add construction, I think is what he called it. So I do a lot of fix and flips. A lot of other investors add value to their properties, but he does it in a very unique way. So Gabe, what's going on, dude? It's good to connect with you. We just met not too long ago, man, but we've had a lot of synergy. We've communicated a lot recently, and I'm glad we can get on and chat in front of everybody and add some value.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited. Like you said, a lot of synergies. We're wired a lot alike. I want to bring value, so I'm excited to be here for your audience, share my kind of journey and what we do, and why I believe there's opportunities for everybody to do it.
Yeah. There's so much opportunity in real estate. That's why it's so great. I mean, you can wholesale, you can fix and flip, we're going to talk about a strategy that you use that not a lot of people are doing. There's so many opportunities in real estate. So let's start with the beginning. Let's talk about how you got into it. People love to hear about that side of it because we have experienced investors on here. We have new investors. So tell us about your journey, where you started. And man, you told me how long you've been in the business, and just in the last 6 years, it seems like you've really learned a lot and scaled a lot and really built a great business. So I'll let you take it, man.
Yeah, so my origin story, not unlike a lot of other people's. I was in the 9-to-5 grind, absolutely hated it. I was working the cube farm, stifled in this little box with my gray garbage can and my gray computer and my gray freaking carpet, and right. So no opportunity to grow, to create, to do anything of any real significant value there. And I found my way into entrepreneurship via an introduction from a friend who was equally miserable at his 9-to-5. We sought out to create a restaurant concept. So my first foray into entrepreneurship was in the food service space, which is why I'm such a processes and systems guy, because you have to be in that space because inventory has a really short shelf life. So food turns real quick. So you learn very, very quickly how to be process and systems oriented. And so my first foray into entrepreneurship was that. That was a 4-year run. I ultimately sold the restaurant to my partner and then transitioned into real estate, where I brought a lot of those methods, those processes, those systems, just the way you run a restaurant. I brought that to what I believed was an industry that really lacks systemization. You have a lot of contractors shooting from the hip, running rehabs off a clipboard in the back of their pickup truck. And so I just came into the business and said, let me do what I did in food, in real estate, and see how it serves me. And it has served me really well. It was especially powerful because we, and I guess we're going to get into this, but we chose a niche that a lot of people weren't operating in at the time. And we got real systematic about how we exploited that niche. And that's been our claim to fame, we'll call it.
Awesome, man. So you're in New Jersey, you do a lot of value add construction. So not a lot of people do that. It's definitely more time consuming. The great thing about what you're doing now, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but like when people wholesale, it's like, pretty quick transaction, right? It's quick money, which is great. For me, I love fixing and flipping because we can spend an extra 30, 45 days adding a ton of value to the property and make a lot more than we can wholesaling. But today's market is so crazy right now that I bet you the deals you're buying, now, or deals you bought, let's say 3 or 4 months ago that you're now putting on the market are probably worth more than you thought they would be worth 3 to 4 months ago. So that may not last forever, but that's probably a great thing about what you're doing is there may be another $20,000-$30,000 in appreciation over, 3 to 4 months, just because the market's so crazy. So talk a little bit about that. So talk about your value add, why you do that. I know you have a program where you teach that and that kind of stuff. So I'd like to kind of hear how you found that method and just kind of the ins and outs of it.
Yeah. So the how I found that method, it's a great way to kind of weave back into and finish the whole origin story piece, because who steps into a value add rehab on their first one? Not many people, right? Because it's the construction piece is, it's scary, right? It's kind of burdensome, and people look at it and they get overwhelmed. What ultimately happened was I got in over my head on my first rehab, brought a bunch of day labor in. They started demoing the house. I was leaving, running to the town to get permits and all other sorts of things in order. And I would come back each day and these guys would have demoed another wall, another room. Like the intention was to do a cosmetic rehab, a kitchen, 2 bathrooms, refinish the floors, some paint. And over the course of a couple of days, they started tearing down another wall, another wall. Before I knew it, a week later, they had essentially gut demoed the house. So what was supposed to be a cosmetic rehab turned into a full gut rehab real fast.
So they accidentally did that, and they were just tearing out walls and didn't realize they were tearing out the wrong stuff.
Yeah. Well, this is why at the time, I didn't know any better. I'm picking up day labor in front of the Home Depot, right? The things I absolutely tell my students to never, ever do now. That's what I was doing. And those guys were like half in the bag. They were likely drinking while they were there because I was leaving them and I was going to run other things, and whatever I was doing, I would come back each day and I was like, damn, like they did that. Damn, they did that. They did that. By the time a week was done and I had a Saturday to myself on site, I just walked in. I was actually in tears looking around like, what the hell did I get in? What did I get myself into? The whole house was gutted, right? At that point, it was the point of no return. And that was my fault. I didn't manage them properly. I didn't know what I was doing. And they just swung hammers. That's what I was bringing them there to do. So and here's the beauty in this, right? This was a gift. I ultimately did a full gut reno. The cosmetic reno on that property would have worked. There was money to be made there, but one thing you can't duplicate is location. This house happened to be in a little enclave in a desirable town, the most desirable enclave in that town. And so by virtue of the fact that it was where it was, it really did warrant the gut rehab that I wasn't going to do. So I got lucky. In doing that gut rehab, we go on to make $82,000 on our very first deal. Very nice. That the bug bit me. And I said, wait a second, like if I can do this and I didn't even mean to, how much more of this opportunity is out there? And so that's why, and we've never looked back. We've done some cosmetic rehabs here and there. We've wholetailed, we've done some of the other stuff, but we stay true to bigger value add levels, pop tops, whatever you want to call them, additions, and even new constructions now.
That's amazing. That's interesting because I've talked about this in many other podcasts, in that, when stuff doesn't go right, there's typically, the saying, there's a silver lining, another one door closed, another one up. I mean, there's so many different sayings to it, but in real estate, like, you really get to learn that because there's so many moving parts and so many things that go wrong, but you were able to find something that added value to your business in the very beginning, and now is something that has brought a lot of good to you. So just something I like to talk about, because stuff, in real estate just doesn't go right. Deals fall apart. In fact, it's interesting. One thing that happened last year, I had a deal that was supposed to close quickly in December of last year, and it kept getting pushed back. And I was wanting it to close because it had a bunch of money tied up into it. We were going to make a lot of money on it. Well, it gets pushed back into like February of this year. So like 3 months. And I wasn't pissed, but I was like, man, we could use that money and put it into other stuff. I'm like, I just hate money sitting there that's coming back. And so we went and did our PPP loan, our second round of PPP. And had we closed on that property, our revenue would have exceeded, based on the previous year, to not get. So we got a ton of money from PPP, and had that deal closed in December, then we wouldn't have got that money. So anyway, just a weird story. I thought I'd share that, stuff wasn't going right at the time, but now it's like when deals don't close on time, I just let it ride. It's not a big deal anymore. So, well, cool, man. So tell us about the labor part of it. So people love wholesaling because it's easy and quick. For someone to go and do an addition, to do a pop top, that kind of thing, it's going to be scary to them. I have only done, in 20 years, I can say I've done one pop top, where I had a second level, for those of you who don't understand that term. And then I've maybe done one other edition that if I did, I can't even remember. So I've really only done one, I think, of what you're talking about. So if someone's getting into the business, would you recommend that they do it on their first deal, or do you recommend them doing other things before they do pop tops or additions?
So here's what I advise. So there's two components, and the reason that there's more competition now than there was then is you likely don't have both, right? It's like the wherewithal to understand and do the construction piece. Usually you've got GCs that get that, but they're not finance guys. Then you've got investors that understand complex financial structures and can raise money, but they're overwhelmed when they look at the construction. So what I advise is that those two people align, right? So if you guys are in the business and you can raise money and you see an opportunity to do this type of deal, but you're put off by the extent of the rehab, the construction, the budget on the scope, align with someone in a JV capacity who has done projects of that size and scale, or find someone in your local market that's a GC that hasn't necessarily dipped his toe into the investment waters yet, but is willing. And I do structures like this. This is why I can speak to this. Like, my framer and I have done a deal together. Like, that's someone who understands construction at the level you might not, and can run that project efficiently and effectively. And then you can find the deal, you can fund the deal, he can fix the deal, and then together you guys can flip it in-house, an agent, whatever. So I always look at it like the 4 Fs: find, fund, fix, flip. The fix and the fund, those 2 Fs are the ones that make these pop top style value add rehabs so overwhelming, and they really aren't. It's just about aligning with the right people.
Yeah, no, I like that. There's a book called Who, Not the Hal. I'm sure you've probably heard of that, by Dan Sullivan, just came out recently. And the concept is, don't figure out how to do it, figure out who can do it, right? So I like that concept. In fact, I was on a mastermind call I was kind of telling you about earlier today, and it was interesting because a lot of people were asking questions of, how do you do this? How do you do that? And then one guy came on, and he's one of those guys. He lives in a exotic location, and he runs a lot of different businesses, but he works a lot, but he doesn't work a lot, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? And his question was, who can help me do this? Who can? And he was just like looking for referrals for like who could do the things for him, rather than him trying to figure things out. So I think that's something that not a lot of people do. And it took me a long time to figure that out. But man, if you want to, you and I were talking about this before we started, like, who can run Facebook ads? Who can build a funnel for me? Who can do all these things? So going into construction, it sounds like it's the same thing, and that's what you teach. So if someone's done what you want to do, then finding someone to plug into it sounds like the best play. So from a standpoint of, there's a lot of moving parts to it. There's permitting, there's blueprints you have to do. I mean, there's architects, in most cities and states. In Wichita, if we did an addition, I don't know that you have to have architectural drawings. I could be wrong, because again, I have never done it in Wichita, but I know there are a lot of places that do require that. So tell me about your system. Like, obviously you've refined the system, you refine your processes, you have a lot of students that are in your program that are having success in doing it. So tell us about, like, from A to Z, the system kind of in a nutshell, on how you put that all together.
Yeah. So it evolved over time. As I step into it, I have that mindset that comes from the restaurant space, which is you got to be systematic. You have to have processes, but I don't know what they are. They evolve over time. I just try and create the most robust, right? Systems really are just fancy words for lists. All systems start out as lists. So I start listing steps, and over the course of the first couple of projects, you start to see the same steps taking place in the same order. Ultimately, that thing gets beefed out to 60 steps. So we have our rehab milestone template. It's 60 steps. It has the order of operations, what trades come in what order. If you follow this milestone template, you execute to this template, you get it done in the order it's supposed to get done in. So that's how we keep our rehabs on track. Even us having done dozens and dozens of these at this point, will still work to these milestone templates. They are the beating heart of our business. Our project manager, when he reports in on his KPIs, on his scorecard every Monday, right over the whiteboard where all this happens, are our trade tracker and our rehab milestone template. Those are the two, that's the lifeblood of our operations division. And so we manage to those systems, which is really just a fancy word for lists. And that's exactly what I encourage my students to do. I encourage anybody who's going to do this to work to that model, work to that system. Even if you are going to JV or hire a GC to run point on your project, do not trust him to shoot from the hip. Insist that he work to a system, because that's why they're there. That's why checklists exist. That's why, pilots have a checklist. Every time that flight goes up, every time that plane takes off, they have to do the same things in the same order because there's 200 of us in the back whose lives depend on it.
Have you watched the show Air Disasters before?
Oh, no.
Oh, dude, it's addicting. It's all about plane crashes and why they happen. And what you just said, like literally they go through a checklist. If there's one thing they miss, there's a potential that plane's going down, right? And the main thing is, and now there's a system to planes like these days, like you have to put flaps a certain way when you take off. If you don't put the flaps a certain way, you're going to get lift for a minute and then you're just going to like nosedive. So anyway, it was just kind of interesting. I'm kind of addicted to that show. My wife's like, man, you're watching that show again. Just because it's like one thing happens and like you have, like you said, you have 100 and some people in a plane and like their lives are in your hands, and like even like pilots will miss things on a checklist that totally throw off the flight. And my camera went off. Let me reload that. I got a setting in my camera that shuts off 30 minutes, so I gotta figure out how to change that. So talk about checklists. I should have put that on the checklist before I started, because honestly, if I would have restarted the camera before we started, that wouldn't have happened. Which
I think the checklist thing, like, hey, when we think about the plane thing and like keeping the plane afloat, keeping the plane in the air, keeping the people alive, treat your rehab the same way. Keep your rehab alive, keep your rehab afloat, move the thing forward per this checklist, per this system, get it done. It's not sexy. Like nobody's over here doing cartwheels over checklists, but if you execute to the checklist and you get to the closing table and you net 6 figures, which you absolutely should on every one of these projects. That's the other reason I advocate for them, because the spreads are fat. Like then you could do your cartwheels, then you could be excited. So, I mean, I don't want to overstate it, but like you and I were talking about before we hit record, like we're systems, processes guys. We subscribe to EOS, to Gino Wickman, to Traction, to that, like the entrepreneur operating system. I genuinely believe it's the business Bible, and it's what I implement in my business now, and I will indefinitely.
So tell me about the things that you've learned since you've started. Like we talked about, there are so many things that can go wrong in the real estate game, but if they go right and, more things go right than wrong, then you can make a lot of money, right? So what are some things that you've learned, lessons you've learned that you can kind of give the listeners that are starting out their business or scaling their business up right now?
So for those that are scaling, what I would say is you don't have to do more of what you did to get where you are, to get where you want to go. And a lot of times you feel like you do because it's what you know. And so we really leveraged this niche to the point where I had blinders on and all I saw were dated capes, ranches, and bungalows that I could put another freaking box on top of. Everything looked like a NADA level. And it was great. And it served us for a few years. It served us almost too well, to the point where we were doing so many of them, we didn't see anything else. We're doing a lot of different things now. We've taken that value add approach to single family fix and flips, and we've transitioned it into commercial. We're repositioning a commercial asset. We're bidding a 16 unit garden apartment development. Like these are things that once you get a handle on the construction elements, you can take that and apply it elsewhere. You can apply it to a different asset class. So I say that to say, like, if you're trying to scale, you may have to start asking yourself different questions, because it's not just about doing more of what you're doing now. That's scaling in a linear fashion when the idea is to scale exponentially. So that's what I would say is a big learning lesson for us that took me longer than it should have. Like I could cut a year and change off my like my learning curve had I said, hey, listen, we did 4, now we're going to do 8, now we're going to do 12. Like that wasn't the answer. The answer wasn't to just keep doing more of the same thing. It was to say, hey, we got this figured out. This continues to run, but let's see how we can take what we learned here and move it to the next level.
What do you think about like, your team? How long did it take you to put your team together? Because I imagine right now you come across a deal, you just throw your team on it. I'm sure you have like, I don't know, an architect, a project manager, a contractor. You've got this team put together. So talk a little bit about that. How long did it take you to put that team together to be able to do these fairly efficiently?
Yeah. So the team that we have now, I don't take for granted, right? I understand that this took a while to develop, and someone earlier in their journey won't necessarily have all of these resources. What they will have is the ability to joint venture, the way we suggested earlier, to create synergies with the people that are experts, the who, not the how thing again. Like, who is it that you can align with that knows how to draw these, that can be your resident architect, who can be your sales dispositions specialist, like who can you align with in a true synergetic, like partnership style capacity. So for us, it was approaching, and tradesmen, this is a really hard sell. It's saying, hey guys, like we're not going to be your one and done. We're not going to be like the retail job that you do in the summer when everybody's flush and sitting home with the kids and saying, you know what, we need to do the pool this year. We need to do the kitchen this year. We're going to be the ones that keep you going through the winter. You're going to want to align with us because we're not doing this deal and that's it. Our intention is to do 12 of these next year. And that's going to be how you keep your guys going. And that was really powerful for us. That's how, and then we had to do it. We had to say it, but then we had to do it too. And so that's how the team was built. That's how the team's evolved over time to the point now where, the guys that I have been with me for years. And I can trust them to run point on my projects when I'm not there, when my project manager is not there. Like everyone's an extension of our brand now when they're on our jobs. But this takes time. Nobody's going to just step into that unless you JV with someone who's already done this legwork.
Yeah, there's nothing better than having a team that you know and trust and have the confidence in, because now you find a deal, that your team can do the deal, do it efficiently. And obviously there's going to be kinks in it. There's always going to be something, especially in big projects like that. But to be able to know that you can just plug and play is a huge benefit. And it does take time. Treat people right, find the right people. And I have a 10% rule now. And you and I talked about hiring people to do like different ads and stuff like that. It's like someone has to be, and it's kind of hard to gauge the exact percentage of like what they are, but like someone needs to be at the top 10 percentile of what they do for me to hire them in anything. Hire them as an employee, hire them as a, as a Facebook ads guy, that kind of thing. And once you get that high level of people, it's like you may pay them a little bit more, but they're going to get stuff done and they're going to be able to accomplish a lot more with those kinds of people.
Yeah, I love the A player model, right? Like A players roll with A players and they only want to roll with A players. You put a C player in the mix, A players, they start to get anxious, and C's have the ability to drag down A's. It's just something they can do with their energy. Whereas A's, you can't bring a C up to an A level because they're just a C, right? They're just wired that way. So I find A players, I pay them the premium like you're talking about, and I try and get them around other A players. So together we're the A player team, and that's why we kick ass. But put a B or a C in the mix and see how fast that dynamic shifts. And so and that's EQ. People are inherently good at that. They don't know that they're good at that, but like you're born with that. As a child, you know how to read people. It's just over time, right? Like all the noise makes it challenging, but in the end, like, your gut tells you like, this guy's going to skate on me. I'm going to give him this deposit. He's going to show up for a week and then he's gone. And then what happens? A week later, he's gone.
It sounds like, I've been in the business 20 years now. It sounds like the first 10 years of my business, man. When you said day labor, I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember those days when I would just like, oh, you can swing a hammer. Come on, let's go.
Yeah. They show up, their eyes are bloodshot red. They've obviously been up all night. They stink like booze, but you forgive all that because you're like, well, I need someone to demo this house.
If they show up, oh man, anyway, I can tell story after story, but like, there's always an excuse. And the best one is, their wife calls me, by the way, so-and-so got arrested. They're probably not going to be for work for a few days. And I'm like, no, they're not going to be at work in a few days. They're not coming back. Like,
yeah.
Actually, in the beginning, I used to let them come back, And I just don't hire those kinds of people anymore. But even if it did happen right now, I'd be like, no, you're not coming back. You just have to have a higher standard, and you get, once you have a higher standard, you get better results. So
yeah. And it's worth it to pay. We're talking about the who, not the how. Pay the better who. Like pay the A player more. And I don't really beat my guys up. A lot of people, like investors, like to pound their chest. It's an ego thing, and they want to get the best bid. Like, I don't want the best bid. I want the best work product. I want the best working relationship. So I gladly pay my guys more than most other investors would. And I compliment the end, and I give them a piece of deals. When deals go well, I reward them because I'm doing really well. So I want them to share in that. And that's how you build an A player team. That's how you scale an operations division.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, let's start wrapping up, man. Anything else you want to share with the group? You've done a lot in 6 years. I know you've got a coaching program and you teach this. We'll tell people how to find that here in just a minute. But any last words before we start wrapping this up?
Yeah, I would say, like two things. Take action and the power of your circle. Like, you're not an investor until you invest in a thing. And so if you're newer in your journey and you're watching this and you're wondering like where you fit in, right? You fit in aligned with someone who's already taking action if you're not the person to step out and take action on your own. Some people are true entrepreneurs. They're risk takers. They're wired a certain kind of way, and they're going to do it. But you can be an intrapreneur. You could be a different kind of entrepreneur. You can align with someone. But again, don't think you're an investor because you go to meetups or because you watch podcasts or whatever the case is. You're an investor once you stroke a check. Once you invest in a thing, you're an investor. So I encourage people to take action, any action, forward progress, and then align with other people that are taking action. Align with people that are doing things at a level you want to do them at, right? You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. You want to be a millionaire, like hang out with 5 of them, you'll become the 6th. People have heard this, but it's just so incredibly true. Anything I've achieved in my life, anytime I've up-leveled my faith, my fitness, my finances, it's always been because I sought the circle. I sought to be around people who were doing it at the level I wanted to do it at, and I gravitated up to their level. So I am just my energy, right? Like the energy I surround myself with, the people who I let into my world. I am unapologetically overprotective of my energy, my space, my time. I want to be around A players, people that are playing to win. So again, I would say those two things, like take action and get around people that are taking action.
Totally, man. That's awesome, dude. So how do people find you? If people want to get into the value add construction business, I know you have a program around it. So how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so everything's branded under the my name, GabeDasilva.com is where they can go find out more about me. That's where my YouTube series is housed, and it's called The Build, right? So I have a docu-series where I had someone follow me for 6 months, document the journey so people can see what it's actually like to do what we do day in and day out. And that'll quickly tell you if this is for you or not. Plenty of people watch that and say, I'd rather lend to you than do that. So they can go there. I've got my ebook is there. There's plenty of free information there for them. The education stuff you're referencing, that's all done under the Fix and Flip Foundations brand, 4Fs, find, fund, fix, and flip of value add rehabbing. Again, like that's all available there. Find me there. I'm active on social. So ideally, Instagram's a great place to get me. I respond to everything. I'm still active in my DMs. Like it's me. So if you message me at Real Gabe Dasilva, you'll get me. And I'm happy to engage with people there. Happy to help, whether it's, whether they're a fit for the course or the mastermind or not, that's not important. What is that I leave them better than I found them. I bring them value in whatever capacity I can serve them. If you're far enough along in your journey where you're ready for the next step, of course, we're ready to help you do that. That's what we do. But I would encourage people to just find me there, GabeDasilva.com, explore the stuff that I've got there. It's all free content. And then just message me on Instagram. Happy to connect there.
Cool, man. Well, thanks for adding value. And, like I said, we met not too long ago, man. I can tell you're a good dude. I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of synergy we have with our businesses. And thanks for adding value, man. We'll talk to you real soon.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks for having me on.
All right, see you, man.
Thanks for listening. Now go to www.remcommunity.com to connect with today's guest, see our high-level masterminds, and to get free resources. Don't forget to share this with a friend and leave us a 5-star review. We'll see you on the next episode.